Hey everyone, welcome to another lesson here in our series on Popular Music Deconstructed. I'm Phil, and you're watching Playground Sessions. Today we're going to be looking at the 9. Now what does that mean, the 9? Well, sometimes we talk about chord progressions, sometimes we talk about rhythmic patterns in this series. But in this lesson, we're going to be talking about a single note, a color tone, something that we can add to chords to spice them up, and something that we also see in melodies quite often to evoke a certain emotion. We can have the 9 added to a major chord or a minor chord or a dominant chord. The 9 has a special flavor, and we're going to get to know that today. We're also going to look at several examples across music and different genres from different artists that use the 9 in a really cool way. There's a ton of examples, but we're going to narrow into 3 in this lesson. We're going to look at the theme song from Frozen, any Disney fans out there. We're also going to be taking a look at a Green Day song. People from my generation maybe can remember growing up with some of that indie rock. And we're also going to be looking at the theme from kind of a strange mystery sci-fi TV series. Any David Lynch fans out there? Any Twin Peaks fans? We're going to look at the theme song from Twin Peaks as well. Now, these are vastly different examples, but they all have something in common. They all use the 9. Let's get started. Now, very briefly, I want to set the stage for what we're talking about here. Typically, when you hear numbers, when we're using numbers to refer to scale degrees, we're talking about the notes and scales, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So in the key of C, there's our C major scale. The 1 is C, the 2 is D, 3 is E, 4 is F, 5 is G, 6 is A. So we go through the scale and we apply the numbers. That's easy in C, but when we're in a different key, it could be harder. Let's say, I don't know, how about A flat? A flat is 1, B flat is 2, C is 3, D flat is 4. Okay, so this really highlights the need to know your keys, know your scales before we get into things like color tones and chord progressions. If you don't understand any of that stuff, that's okay. We're going to keep this simple as well. The 9 is a fancy way of saying the 2. So if you can figure out the second scale degree in any key, you now know the 9 in that key. All right? So let's take a look at the 9 added to a C major chord. Okay? We're going to keep it in C for now. Then we're going to look at our song examples. We can play a C major chord in the left hand. We can play through our scale. Let's stop when we get to 2. Here's 1, here's 2. There's 2, guys. We're doing it. If we add a D to a C major chord, sounds nice, right? Sounds pretty. It kind of gives it a little bit of a different flavor. Still a C major chord. We have a C in the root, and we have our major third and our fifth. This is our normal C major chord. If we add this on top, it's a nice color tone. Now, you don't have to have it separate. Some like to add the 9 to a major chord in what is called a cluster. We could put it in the same range. Here's our C chord, here's the 2. Now if we put it all together, it's got that same sound, but a bit more clustered and compressed. Now, right out of the gate, you don't have to understand music theory or any of that. You just have to know that if you add the 2 to a 1-3-5 chord, you're going to get that extra color. And that's what this lesson's about, the 2 or the 9. We're adding the 9. So one question you may be having is, if the 9 is the same as the 2, why don't we just call it the 2? Why do we have to call it the 9? Well, there are 8 notes in our scale, in our octave, right, before we repeat into the next octave. So we would say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, or 1 again, right, if we want to repeat. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Once we get past our first octave, it repeats. But if we're adding a note to a chord, then we like to think about the additional notes, the color notes, as being in the second octave. So if we have a C major chord, and we're adding a note an octave above, we can refer to it as the 9 instead of the 2. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1 or 8. 2 or 9. See that? If you hear someone say the 9, it typically means that they're playing the full chord, 1, 3, 5, and then we're adding the 2 on top of it. Now, let's take a look at a minor example. We can also add a 9 to the minor chord. Here's C minor. The 9, remember, is the 2. So we can cluster it like this, or we can have a C minor down here with an added 9. And notice there's a built-in tension or motion that wants to happen. When you hear the 9, it kind of wants to resolve down. Or it could also resolve up to a strong chord tone. So you can add the 9 here as well, and it gives a different kind of a sound, a different flavor, a different color to our chord. So that's the 9. That's how we can add it to a chord. We can add it up top for a bit of a melodic sound, or we can add it right into the chord for a compressed kind of a cluster sound. That's the 9, and you're going to see that and hear that in so much music across all genres. That's why we're looking at it here for Popular Music Deconstructed. So let's get to our first example. We're going to take a look at the theme song from the movie Frozen, all right? Anyone remember Let It Go? I know my 4-year-old daughter loves to listen to Frozen, and she's actually learning to play this melody. So let's take a look at the melody that opens up this theme song right out of the gate, measure 1. All right. Now, regardless of if you're a Disney fan or a fan of kids' movies or not, that's a beautiful piano riff. I love that intro. I love playing that. Let's break it down for a minute, okay? We have a progression, and we have a little melody, and we have some rhythm going on as well. Let's simplify it a bit, and then we'll add these elements back in, okay? Check this out. That's kind of our basic progression. We have F minor, we have D flat major, we have E flat major, and then we have a B flat sus that resolves to a B flat minor chord, okay? And then that repeats, F minor, D flat major, E flat major, and then a B flat sus to B flat major. A nice change there. All right, so the thing that I love about this riff, and the melodic material happens here in the right hand, we're really focusing in on a few different 9s. We're adding a 9 to some of these chords in the melody, and it's causing some emotion and some tension, right? That's what the composer wanted here. This is a sad, tense, dense piece here, okay? Check this out. The first 2 notes in the right hand, we start on the 9 of the F minor chord, and it resolves upward to the minor 3rd. Now I'm playing the full chord in the left hand here just to show this. Maybe I'll drop it down here so you can separate visually. That 9 is so important to this melody. Without it, we just are playing chord tones. C is the 5th of F minor. A flat is the minor 3rd of F minor. That would be kind of a boring melody, or more boring. Instead, what we have is a very dramatic and emotional melody because of the play between the 9 and the minor 3rd. We have that half-step dissonance. So again, then we move to a new chord, no 9 here. But then right here, we move to E flat major. And in E flat, F is the 2 or the 9. So we're repeating this idea of 9. Then we get to our B flat chord, and it's not a 9, but it's a suspenseful, suspended resolution nonetheless. Okay, we repeat F minor with a 9 in the melody. Now on the E flat chord, again, F is the 9. Watch the F in the right hand melody. So we can see that the 9 isn't just used as a harmony addition. It's not just a colorful tone to add to a chord. It can also drive a melody. It can drive a riff. It can be the foundation for the emotion that the composer is trying to get across. That's pretty cool. Again, regardless of how you feel about Frozen, that's a beautiful piece of music, all right? Now, let's talk about another example, something very different from Elsa's song about letting it go. We're looking at Wake Me Up When September Ends. Now, this song is in the key of G. Okay, beautiful piece. Let's take a look at that melody. When we add this melody on top of these chords, we're going to see a few different 9s, and I want to call them out. Okay, right out of the gate, G major chord, the 9 or the 2 is A, and sure enough, that's our first melody note, resolving up to the 3rd. Same idea here. Melody goes to E over a D chord. That's another 9. That's the 2 of the D chord, okay? And then that's going to resolve downward to the root. We're going to keep moving. Here's the hook. Wake me up when September ends. Sure enough, wake is the 9 of this chord. D is the 9 of the C major chord, right? We're going to do it again over the C minor chord. So beautiful. We have major 4, we have minor 4, back to major 1. The 9 works on the major and on the minor. So much emotion and drama by messing with this one additional note. It causes some dissonance and some tension, even on the major side, especially on the minor side. Let's look at one last example here. Speaking of emotion and drama, I really want to wrench it even further here. I want to take a look at Twin Peaks. If you haven't seen it, it's a strange one. It's a cool one. It's a cult classic. I personally love it, and I love the music that we find in the series as well. Now, I see a classic example of using the 9 to cause some dissonance, and we see it in Twin Peaks here. Let's take a look. All right, so just the back and forth between those first 2 chords. We're in the key of F major here. We have an F major chord, with a little bit of motion, and we have a D minor chord with a little bit of motion. Okay, let's simplify here. Left hand basic triads. Right hand, I'm going to simplify what I'm doing as well. There we have it. That's the essence of that piece, without any of the extra bells and whistles. And we can clearly see F major, we have the 9 resolving down to the root. And then we shift to D minor. Check it out. The 9 of D minor resolving down to the root. It doesn't get more textbook than that, right? There it is. Now, of course, there's some things we can do to make it feel more authentic. We can add some rhythm and some range in the left hand, kind of get that feel going. The right hand is where the chord kind of has that 9 built in. And to accentuate this move from the 9 to the root, I'm going to leave out the root in the beginning. I'm just going to play 9, 3rd, and 5th. Then I'm going to resolve it down to the root. Same thing on D minor. I'm going to get into this position here, and I'm going to play. So, left hand. Now shift. Now if you wanted to add more in the left hand, you could do something like this. Now that's not really anything to do with the 9, that's just more something from Twin Peaks if you listen in the bass. It's a little extra motion, but that's just a bonus for you advanced players out there. That's the 9, my friends. We see it in chords, we see it in melodies and riffs, we see it mixed in between. It can create forward motion in what we're playing or what we're hearing. It can cause a bit of tension, which can be a good thing. Tension leads us to want resolution. That's the push and pull in music that you often hear us referring to, okay? Tension can be a good thing when it's resolved or when it's balanced. That's the motion we want. And the 9 is a beautiful tool to create that tension. Guys, have fun with this and check out other videos that we've got in our Popular Music Deconstructed series if you want to get to the bottom of more of these mysteries, more of music's sort of common shared building blocks that we see across genres and artists. I'm Phil. I hope I see you guys soon for the next one. All right, guys, thanks for watching. I'm Phil. Don't forget to hit subscribe and tap that notification bell. And be sure to check out the Playground Sessions interactive app. It was co-created by music legend Quincy Jones. Playground teaches the piano with interactive feedback and gaming features, all while using your favorite songs.